Hi, I'm Gudrun Lauret, and today I'm talking about William Armstrong and Victorian inventions. The name William Armstrong is as familiar to people in the north of England as Charles Earl Grey, Richard Granger, and Admiral Cuthbert Collingwood. Most people will have visited his spectacular home in Morpeth at least once, even if only on a school trip. But who was William Armstrong, and how did he come to equip his family home with inventions such as an indoor shower, an automatic meat spit, and light bulbs? William Armstrong was descended from the Border Reivers, who were notorious for their raids along the Scottish-English border and for their ability to cause havoc in an inhospitable landscape. Armstrong's clan were from Bewcastle near Carlisle and probably raided north into Scotland. The practices of the Reivers had more or less died out by the start of the 17th century, and Armstrong's grandfather was a shoemaker. His father was a corn merchant who became a councillor and then the mayor of Newcastle. Born in 1810, Armstrong was educated first at the Royal Grammar School and then Bishop Auckland Grammar School. Even at 16, his passion was really engineering. He visited a nearby works to his school, and that was where he met his future wife. Armstrong trained as a solicitor and practiced for 11 years, but he finally decided to move back to his passion of engineering, particularly in the field of hydraulics. He dabbled at an amateur level before completely changing career in 1847. While on a fishing trip one day, he noticed that a water wheel within a river was very energy inefficient, and this inspired him to develop a piston engine to drive a hydraulic crane. And it was this and other experiments that led to him being elected a Fellow of the Royal Society in 1846. These successes led Armstrong to becoming a hydraulic equipment manufacturer, and W.G. Armstrong and Company was established at Elsick on the banks of the River Tyne in 1847. As the company flourished, Armstrong started to move away from simply producing hydraulics. A desire to support the British Army out in the Crimea led to him creating a field gun that was both lighter and more mobile than what was currently in use, and with greater range and accuracy. He decided to give the patent to the British government rather than making a profit from it, and this earned him a knighthood in 1859. From there, he moved into armaments manufacture, producing guns for warships and later the ships themselves. Armstrong designed the swing bridge, which is famous for its pivot motion. Construction on the bridge began in 1873 and came about because the ships could not go up the Tyne to have the war guns fitted. After his marriage, he lived in Jesmond and designed what is today a vast public park known as Jesmond Dean. Construction began in the 1860s with a banqueting hall overlooking the Dean. A Dean is a northeastern word for valley. Armstrong went on to give both the banqueting hall and the park itself to the public in 1883, and he was made a baron in 1887 in recognition for his philanthropy and contribution to the country. Armstrong also served as president for the Literary and Philosophical Society and the Mining Institute. These prestigious organisations still operate in Newcastle today. He also gave a generous donation to the founding of the Natural History Museum, later known as the Hancock and today known as the Great North Museum. Jesmond Dean was filled with plants, waterfalls and rockeries designed to mimic natural landscapes. But despite making this his family home, he always wanted to live out in the countryside. Armstrong was familiar with Rothbury in Morpeth from his childhood and decided that that was where he'd build a house. And while it was William Armstrong who chose the location for Cragside, it was his wife Margaret, known as Meggie, who was just as involved in the design. Lady Armstrong was passionate about natural sciences. A keen gardener, she designed much of the exterior of Cragside. The house itself was built by architect Richard Norman Shaw, and the two men worked on and refined it for 25 years. Cragside started life as a two-storey dwelling with conventional decor. However, over time it evolved to have turrets and towers, carvings, stained glass, and even a natural history and art gallery. The Owl Suite, as it became known, designed by Shaw for Armstrong's well-heeled guests, featured a marble fireplace built into the crag or rock face itself. And while the two men occasionally clashed, Shaw was surprisingly mostly given free rein with his designs. He installed a stained glass in the library, which was created by Dante Rossetti and William Morris. Contemporary writers describe both the magician's laboratory in the tower and Turkish baths in the basement, and a sympathetic library with touches of inspiration from Armstrong's trip to Egypt. But it's fair to say that Armstrong's love of inventing and hydraulics that really enabled Cragside to stand apart from the other Victorian stately homes. It was important to both Lord and Lady Armstrong that they had a home that was both comfortable and welcoming to visiting friends, and impressive and magnificent to business partners, dignitaries, and even royalty who came to their home. The Prince of Wales, who was later Edward VII, and his family stayed there in 1884. Armstrong used light bulbs designed by fellow northeastern inventor Joseph Swan to illuminate the library and other rooms at Cragside. These early filament bulbs rested in vases of enamelled copper, which had previously been used as oil lamps. The bulbs were lit by electricity carried through an insulated wire into the base of the vase. It's worth noting that the base contained mercury, and servants had to wear gloves to avoid electrocution when completing the circuit. Armstrong made really good use of the electricity throughout the house. When the dining room lights were switched off, for instance, the current illuminating them moved to the art gallery so that guests could view his impressive collection at night. Once they'd done that, they could enjoy moonlit parties in the drawing room, which featured an elliptical ceiling allowing it to be lit from above. The Armstrongs loved entertaining as much as their guests loved coming to Cragside, so no doubt the cook and the kitchen maids appreciate the master's inventions, as well as the water-powered meat spit and the hand-pulled dumbwaiter. Armstrong had supplied them with an early version of the dishwasher. And if guests found themselves hot and sweaty from all of their merrymaking, hot running water was available, and there were also rudimentary showers. Armstrong continued to be an inventor to the end of his life. After Maggie's death in 1893, he purchased Bamborough Castle, reportedly for £60,000. Armstrong chose to preserve and restore the ancient building, which has its earliest foundations dating back 1400 years. It was from his apartment in Bamborough that Armstrong published his book, Electronic Movement in Air and Water. This came out in 1897 and outlined just some of his recent experiments. William Armstrong was also an early proponent of renewable energy. When he built Cragside, it was designed to have several man-made lakes. It was these lakes that powered the hydroelectricity throughout the house. William Armstrong was just one of many Victorian inventors in the north of England, as well as Joseph Swan, who invented the light bulb. There were people such as Robert Stephenson who were working hard on the railways. And I can imagine that the north of England must have been an exciting place to live. There were a lot of developments in terms of coal and boat travel as well. If you'd like to learn more about William Armstrong, this really was a whistle-stop tour through his life. I'd recommend the National Trust website. You can find out more about Cragside, its opening times, and so on. Bamborough Castle is open to the public. You can stay there. They have apartments. Last time I checked, they were booked 2 to 3 years in advance, but it is possible to visit Bamborough. And I'd also highly recommend Henrietta Heald's book, William Armstrong, The Magician of the North, which was invaluable in helping me put this presentation together. Thank you for your time. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have any questions, you can find me in the Facebook group. Thank you.